Good evening and welcome to another recapitulation of diatribes from the voice of doom. And now here's your reiterative and repetitive host, voice of doom. Hello. I'm going to do something a little different today, which I've been meaning to do for months now, because even though nobody watches this, I do. And nothing bugs me more than little details that grate on my nerves. And my early diatribes, 1 through 12 or so, were terrible because the sound was awful because I didn't have this mic. I'm not saying it's great now. I don't have the big mic like the podcasters in my headphones. But I have a mic and it's clear there's not so much static. And I did some diatribes in the early times. It was very rough around the edges back then. I wasn't quite as streamlined and sharp graphics that you have now in the sound effects. It was more primitive. I did some good diatribes and I listened to them and they bugged me because it's staticky. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do a diatribe all over again as best I can. And you can call it a mid-season rerun when they play repeats after about 4 or 5 shows back in the old days when you didn't binge watch TV, TV shows. You had to wait every week. And they play repeats, but I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to try to say what I said before and have it be clearer because I thought it was pretty good. And the subject was a major one. It was about racism, and I wanted to explain a few things about how it's a ridiculous issue. And I will say that I could end it right now very simply, but we'll discuss it and, try to hash it out because the way I see it, racism is not really there per se, the way people think. It would be like a mental aberration, like a phobia if you just look at a person and you don't hear anything, you don't talk to them, you don't know anything about them, you just say, I hate that person just because of the color of their skin, and that's it, I hate them. And that's not that prevalent in the US of A, or what used to be. I think there are people that are like that, but they're very rare, and it might be on both sides. That, they just don't like, just like you don't like, heights or don't like, enclosed spaces. I don't like this person because of the color. And the problem isn't shade and it isn't the hue, it is communication. That's always been the main problem. We can't communicate. And it's a different way of communicating that we don't relate to each other. And that's obvious. But I thought before I go into that and CRT and all that dribble drabble, I would explain that like 3 generations from now, people are going to be just absolutely, flabbergasted at, our behavior. You're going to be acting like, what were these people back in the early 21st century wasting their time about, who has the power and what color you are is going to, dictate your future, and you have disadvantages or you have advantages, and there's like, they were out of their minds. What were they talking about? I mean, what, they're going to be like, they must have been insane. And the reason is obvious. And I will tell you why racism will never be a problem in the future. Because anybody who's taken biology in high school knows full well that the Caucasoid genes are recessive. Now, I'll tell you what that means, and I'll show it to you graphically. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay, this is a picture of, well, this is a picture of my sister's the first set of kids, the first set of three with my kid. The top kid is a Caucasian through and through. The middle two were born of the same father, and they're both half black. Now, look at that. The little girl is a little darker than the boy. In fact, the boy has reddish hair, blondish hair, and very pale, half black. The bottom kid is my kid. He's half white and half Mexican, and a little bit of Chinese, and some Mexican Indian. My wife was Mexican Indian, Mexican, and Chinese. So that's an interesting combination. So the top kid is the Caucasian. Now let's go on. Here's my parents, for two of my nieces from the second set of three from my sister. See how lily white they are? It was back when we were living in that neighborhood, horrible neighborhood, and we were spreading hate everywhere we could go. They were horrible white, people. Thought they, were in charge of everything. There's my two nieces. They're both in college now. The other three, what do I have here? These are old pictures, but it was taken in Hawaii, no doubt. And they're all in college now. And all the older nieces and nephews have kids of their own. Let's see. Here's my other niece. That was the one in the other picture. She's really cute. And here is a picture of her all grown up with her mate and their son. Now you can see from looking at them that they're beautiful specimens of humanity. And that kid is about 6 now, and he is one of the most beautiful people you've ever seen, physically and mentally and emotionally. He's a great kid. Yeah, here's a picture of my sister that we adopted back in '69 because we were, trying to be white saviors for her. We adopted her when she was 6 months. It didn't end well. I can tell you more about adoption later. Here's my dad, that white cracker with my two kids. And my two kids, you can see, are, a little Caucasian in there, but, the Hispanic and the Negroid features and traits are dominant, okay? Now you look at how things are in this world now, and you will see that 3 generations, 70 years from now, 75, they'll be looking back going, man, those guys were insane. And it'll be because they all kind of look alike, because we're all blending together. It's the natural way things are. Things blend. You put one blue dye drop in a big gallon of water, and pretty soon it's an even amount of blue throughout all the water. It's a natural thing, and it's going to happen like that. And so racism is a total waste of time. Total straw man for one tribe to have a sacred cow. And the way it's really sacred is that you can't really discuss it without being racist. So it's a perfect Gordian knot. Now, CRT. Well, give you a quick rundown on that, because it's nothing new. Anybody that thinks that CRT is something new is woefully ignorant because it started way back in the 70s. And they laid the foundation for that philosophy all through the last 50 years or so. When I was in elementary school, I went to a white bread school. There were probably two black people in the whole school. And they were probably the two smartest people in the school, ironically enough. It was in that hateful white enclave known as Seattle in the suburbs. And I kind of was I thought about things deep when I was a little kid because I read a lot. And I always thought about why I was born the way I was. And I go to myself, I'm really glad I'm white. And I really said that because I was looking around and I'm like, well, it seems like the white men run everything around here, so I guess I'm lucky that I was born a white male or whatever. And never mind the transgender stuff. Just talk about what we have to deal with every day. And I was glad. And I won't say I felt superior, but I was grateful that I was born that way because they kept telling me that all these minorities were oppressed and living in poverty. So I'm very happy, I won't say proud, to be born a white male, I guess. I mean, white at least. I mean, can't change that. Unless you're a Virginia governor who puts blackface on, but never mind that. So that's what I thought, and I felt really good, and I was upwardly mobile and being kind of in charge, systemically, in charge. And then we moved to Hawaii when I was in 7th grade, and I went into the public schools in 7th grade. So not only was I starting middle school in a totally foreign environment, but middle school is the worst time because they're too young to be cute and they're too old to be mature, and they're right in the middle acting like real asses at all times. 7th, 8th, 9th grade, bad. Maybe 6th. I don't know how they did it, but we had 7th, 8th, and 9th. Now, when I got to that school, I went into the classroom, and there was no white people there. There was Samoans, there was Hawaiians, there was local Japanese. So I took a big, long look around, and I thought to myself, well, since I'm the only white guy here, I'm really going to run things. I'm really going to be in charge of everything. And I wasn't in charge of anything. I didn't run anything. I pretty much had to fight every day. And I didn't understand a word they were saying because Pidgin is hard to understand at first, even from the teachers. They're speaking Pidgin. So I don't understand, and then I'm like, I don't understand you, and then they get mad because I don't understand them. And they didn't understand me because I was sarcastic back then, and I'm looking around with these guys, and they're hitting me. And it's like, well, this sarcasm ain't going to go over very well with these locals. So, I had to fight every day, and they didn't make many bones about it. They either would contrive a little thing amongst their little gang to get me in trouble. They'd set me up so that another guy could come and beat me up. Or they just outright come out and hit me and say, I hate white people. And I'm just like, well, all right. And so even though I was fighting every day, my grades went down to D's, which I'd never seen before. I'd never seen a D on a report card in my life. Not a C ever. But I was getting bad grades, and I was getting abused a little bit, and I was putting up with a lot of things that were making me tense. But since I was white, it was okay, because I was systemically in charge. So it was quite all right. But then when I got to high school, there's always a guy in high school. He was a friend of ours. And if you want to talk race, he was half white and half Japanese, and he was kind of gay. And, we liked him because he was witty, and, he was a nice guy. And so, we'd hang out. And, you know, he's one of these guys, he's a genius, and he reads everything. I think he is a professor of literature in someplace like some big college like Stanford or something big, one of those big East Coast Ivy. So he was a genius, and he read everything hot off the press, and he read the CRT, whatever that book was, and he comes up to me and says, you're a racist. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, you're a racist. You think you're, because you're white, you really think you like, minorities, but you don't. So he's getting into me, into my face about it. I'm like, well, my parents adopted a half black girl, and, I've never thought of myself as racist. And he's like telling me, oh, you're the white savior, and you had to come and save her because you're, and you talk about, well, if you say you have a black friend, that means you're racist. So there's no winning. And I knew it back then. And he was annoying, and he always belittled me, but he might have had a crush on me. But at any rate, he was talking about the systemic white racism and how it's impossible for a minority, I'll just say minority, I don't want to get into, to be racist because the whites are in power and they have no power. So they can't be racist. They can be biased, but they can't be okay. So he knew all the garbage. And I will say that everybody's right and everybody's wrong. It's like Buffalo Springfield said. But we're never going to get anywhere by the main thing, that's communication itself, because we don't communicate. And if you notice, there's plenty of people, they have a lot in common. One guy is, they're a little he's a little overweight. They're both, one guy's white, one guy's black, and they're both kind of paunchy, and they love video games. They got glasses on, and they're kind of geeky, and they get into Marvel comics, and, they like pizza, and they like each other, and they're friends, and it doesn't matter what color they are, because they have a lot in common. You have some guy, good old boy from Alabama, his buddies decide they're going to take a, road trip and, do a tour of South Central just to see what it's like. And they get out of their car and start whooping it up like a bunch of good old boys will do. And a bunch of other good old boys, I won't say boys, denizens, are completely from a different culture and planet, and it can't go well. And we all know why. Communication. Not level, but just the way people communicate. It's not, it's not going to happen. So I gave you an abbreviated, a little more developed version of an earlier episode because I really think I made a good point with those pictures. There's 6 nieces and nephews. One is white, and he married a white girl, and they have 3 white kids. So we're kind of trying to keep the fire burning a bit, but it's against all odds because we got 5 other people who are half black and half white, and then we got 2 people who are half Mexican and half white. So it stands to reason that the Caucasian attributes are slowly being weeded out. It may not happen this year, but 100 years from now, everybody will look alike, and they'll have different reasons to hate each other. And they probably, I hope they don't, but if we don't blow each other up over racism now, we might live to see the day that we have different reasons to be at each other's throat besides the color of our skin. So it's a very long one. It's 20 minutes. I think it's longer than I wanted it to be. But I did what I wanted to do and redid that very good episode from earlier. And if you want to watch the original version, it's Season 1, Episode 11. So good night, everybody. I hope I was enlightening. Bye.